Hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Motu versus Mehra fight. If you're new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do need a like video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Motu is 17-0 with 6 KOs, and Mehra is 12-4-1 with 4 KOs. This fight is for the IBO World Super Bantamweight title. Motu's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Simwaka, and Mehra's last fight was a win via TKO in round 2 versus Yazidu. Yazidu. Pronunciation always terrible. Like I say, as always, I apologise. Motu is 33 and Mehra is 22. This fight is in Motu's home country of New Zealand, and so just to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, that of course is for the IBO World title, and in a super bantamweight division that, to be fair, as of recent has been doing well and in a good state and has had some good fights. And I mean, we're coming off a fight just this weekend being Lefebvre versus Gallagher, and to see another big name in the division fighting again, it's nice to see. Obviously, maybe not at the level of opponent that you'd be possibly suspecting at this point, but to be fair, she is fighting tough opponents, even though possibly the records might not suggest. They are still very tough opponents. Like Simwaka was a very tough opponent and made for a great fight, and Motu in the end was just outworking her and improved throughout the whole fight and was just relentless and was just too much for Simwaka, but was a great fight as well. And I mean, to be fair, I haven't seen the tape of Mehra's last fight because I don't really think there is any, but to get TKO, and I believe she got TKO in the fight before that as well. So she's on a bit of a run at the moment, got a bit of momentum, and saying that she's not really got too many TKOs slash stoppages in her career to now be kind of racking up a few is gonna stead well in the way of confidence going into a big fight like this, which is most definitely her toughest of her career so far. Of course, Motu being the much older fighter than what Mehra is, there's going to add possible elements of youthfulness of Mehra, but the elements of experience from Motu. And I mean, you'd like to think possibly if Motu is to get a win for this fight, that she goes on to fight another top level fighter in this division, and well, two fighter top level fighter in this position. And just because I'm not saying she's old, but just where she is at the moment in her career, you'd have to argue she's in her prime, and so surely she has to be testing that and proving that she is at the best of her ability at the moment and can fight at the top level. This fight's in Motu's home country of New Zealand, and I mean, she's kind of waving the flag for women's boxing in New Zealand at the moment, and she's doing amazing in the process. And yeah, also on this card though is Daniels versus Robinson for the IBF World Light Heavyweight title, in which I think Daniels will win via unanimous decision. To be completely honest, I don't know loads about this fight, but I know it's a world title fight, being in the division in the women's boxing in the light heavyweight division that hasn't really got any standout names. And when I did a prediction for a heavyweight fight in the women's division, I was saying throughout that most of that time that there needs to be a clear standout star, and that boxing is waiting for one of them to come through women's boxing and heavier divisions. And you never know, something like Daniels could be that. And Robinson, I think she's just too inexperienced and has lost to a lesser opponent than what Daniels has. And Daniels, like, to be fair, Robinson has fought at multiple different weights and been winning at multiple different weights, but Daniels, the more experience at different weights as well. She's now coming down for this fight, I believe, and I think she's going to be able to win. Not stoppage though, because I don't think that she's really known for getting her stoppages, neither, to be fair, as Robinson, to be honest. But going back to the main event and Motu Mehra, and so to speak about Motu as a fighter, this is all based off her last performance, her last fight, which, like I mentioned, was a great fight. So she can take a shot. She's proved that she's got a good chin. She's got a high guard in the process though, so there's not loads of shots that she's thrown that are getting through. She's a solid hitter. She kind of will put everything into her punches and does throw with intent. She won't be bullied. She's controlled. She finds gaps. She's got solid, good counters. She has decent timing when an opponent is coming in. She controls the centre. She can fight though on the front or the back foot. It seems like when she does fight on that of the back foot, she kind of is allowing that to happen and still comfortable and controlled when that is happening. And but then when she wants to push the pace and kind of throw in the bunches, in which she does, she's most definitely going to push you back in the process with that aggressiveness and the fact that she will brutally attack the body and that to the head in the process as well if you're well willing to stand and trade with her. She has immense heart. She doesn't smother a work in close. She is physically strong. She has a great work rate, and that was proved in that last fight throughout the fight that she was just fighting throughout the whole time relentlessly. She improves throughout as well, like I mentioned. I think the way that she did fight that last fight, there was possible rounds early on that you could argue that Simwaka just won from the maybe faster work rate and quicker hands, and you could argue that. But then throughout the later rounds, it was clear domination. Even when Simwaka was still there, she was still throwing punches, and she's a tough fighter and a game fighter, and always going to be willing to fight. Motu was just shutting down everything with her brutal attacks. Negatives about her: she's not really that defensive. I mean, she uses that higher guard as a defense. She hasn't really got much defensive movement. She can be possibly outworked at times. When I say outworked, I probably mean just more outpaced. So she's not the quickest of fighters. Her hand speed isn't amazing, but I mean, in the later rounds, you're not really outworking her in the later rounds. Sometimes the balance can be a little bit off. Sometimes if an opponent moves back from being in close, that can catch her off guard and a balance off guard. She's a bit heavy footed, that kind of links to the balance bit at times. She, like I mentioned, doesn't have amazing hand speed. She has a bit of a lack of a jab, and she doesn't really overly set up her shots there much and doesn't really set traps in the process to bait somebody in. She's very much just kind of what you expect is what you're going to get, and she doesn't really throw many feints either, so it's very much, it can be a little bit predictable at times, but it's still great work. And I suppose in the bunches that she is throwing, that is difficult to still counter and to deal with. She doesn't really cut off the ring loads of perhaps possibly what she could have. She's not overly technical, and she's not arguably faced much of a moving target and much of a counter puncher yet. And so there's question marks of if that's going to be able to be something that might show her up. But in my opinion, I don't know if Mehra is that of a fighter of a counter puncher. But to speak about her, she's an opponent and a fighter who will find a target. She'll find it consistently. She's good at finding the head, and like I mentioned, I've not watched this as the last fight, but I've watched previous fights of hers, and she finds a target well. She will respond if she gets hit. She's willing to kind of stand and trade in the process, but she's tough and game and willing to respond. She's got that youthfulness about her. Is that going to play a factor? The fact that she is possibly got more of a bit of a confidence spring in her step. She's light on her feet, lighter than what Motu is. I think she has solid defensive movement and can move around a bit better. And so I suppose you never know. There's still that aspect there. Like I mentioned, she could struggle against moving target. I don't think Mehra's got amazingly good movement, but it's solid. I would say it's better than what Simwaka's was, and could cause a slight bit of a problem. She's got decent timing by herself, and so could possibly catch Motu if she's moving around the ring. Motu walking you down. Like I mentioned, she's not really got much head movement, Motu. She's a bit more of a mid-range fighter. She'll aim to tie you up if you are in close, and so that could frustrate Motu. She can fight well on the back foot, and most of the time does fight on the back foot. She throws with intent. I'll speak a bit more about her kind of form and the way that she throws in a moment, but she throws with intent. She's tough, like I mentioned. I think she is the bigger fighter, naturally taller fighter. Obviously, I think Motu's the physically stronger and more imposing fighter, but height can play a factor. And like I mentioned, she's confident going into this. And the negatives about her, it's the arm punches. A lot of punches are arm punches. They're not really hitting with much intent. The main kind of thing that maybe stops opponents is just the work rate or just the consistency of being able to land, or the timing as well. But it is a lot of arm punches. She's got a bit of a lack of composure in close. That's to an extent why she will smother you up, but it's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes she can look a little bit flustered when in close. She's got a low guard, and her whole body is open a lot of the time. A lot of the time her head's open as well in close, and which is not a good thing to see against somebody like Motu. She can be dragged into a fight. Is that going to be good against Motu when you could argue, like I've said, that moving against Motu could be better? She stands quite upright, a big target to hit. She's not really got much of a technique. There's arguments of this is too big of a step up for her. She's not that fast either. She's the weaker of the two physically, and she can, if she does find a shot which she thinks she lands, she will often just run in, and if she's going to run in, she could definitely catch counters running in. without much head movement. Motu is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Motu will win via TKO in round 5. In my opinion, Motu's going to be able to outwork her too much, and possibly Mehra might come out and try and move and try and see what she can do in that aspect, but I think Motu's just going to stalk her down, find any shots that possibly lands from Mehra, just whatever. I think Motu is just too tough for that, and then just be able to completely outwork her, out dominate her, and get an early stoppage. And I'm, to be honest, surprised that more opponents haven't been stopped by Motu. I suppose it just shows that she is fighting tough opponents, even if possibly the records don't always suggest. Then who she could go on to fight? Like I mentioned, I want big fights for her now, and like I said, she's not fighting bad opponents, but I want the big fights from now, and hopefully that can happen. I mean, Lefebvre, WBO champion, like I said, just fought and just retained her title this weekend, last weekend, depending on when you're watching it. And so that could be another big fight. She says she wants to unify. Obviously, the IBO isn't a huge belt, but it's still a belt nonetheless. Ali is another option that could be a big fight for her, and I'm sure that Matchroom would be open to making a fight like that, but possibly that's too big of a step up for Ali. I don't know. Romero, who in my opinion could be a champion right now. Obviously, she's not because of the head class versus Rivas, but she was winning that fight from what I saw, and I think Romero could make for a good fight versus Moto as well. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you did, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.